Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection. And today we're going to tell you about 10 really great double features you can currently watch on Netflix. So this is going to be a list of 20 movies, and you can watch these as double features, so it's actually going to be 10 pairings we're going to give you. Now, I personally really love watching two movies back to back, and so for our first pick, I'm going with Deliverance. Now, this just got added to Netflix recently. I've talked about it on the channel. It is a classic for a couple of dozen reasons, one being the cast with Burt Reynolds and Jon Voight. The other, just the story is such a classic, and it is a grim subject matter. If you've never seen it, it's about a bunch of guys on a river trip. They're on a camping trip, a guy's fishing trip. They are attacked in the woods, seemingly going to be murdered, and just a chain of events takes off from there. It is a really taut thriller and feels very, very realistic all the way through. Again, mainly because the cast is so good, but it's such a gripping story, and it's so well put together and well directed. If you have never seen it, it is a must-watch before it's gone from Netflix. If you have seen it, maybe it's been a while, it's going to make a great double feature along with The River Wild is actually a really great river rafting movie about a family. So this one's a little more accessible. It's not really quite as grim, even though there's some pretty heavy subject matter, because Meryl Streep and her family are on a rafting trip, and they come across a couple of guys played by Kevin Bacon and John C. Reilly. And they are not good dudes, and they end up tagging along on the trip, and things get progressively worse for this family from there. It's a really great movie. I think a lot of people have seen this one because it's one of those movies that just ran on TV all of the time, but it just got added to Netflix fairly recently, and this paired with Deliverance, I think, makes a fantastic double feature. Now for something completely different from those two thrillers. The next double feature starts off with Pineapple Express. So this is one of my favorite comedies to have come out this century for a handful of reasons. And it's not that I'm a big pothead or anything like that. I don't think you really need to be to enjoy this movie. If you are, I'm sure you probably love this movie. However, it's a really great buddy movie. It reminds me a lot of the Blues Brothers. There's a lot of similarities somewhat in the relationship between the two main characters, except their relationship sort of turns into a friendship throughout this movie, whereas, the Blues Brothers, they're longtime friends to begin with, but they get into this epic adventure where the police are chasing them, and there's car chases and just mayhem, and all of the mayhem is where a lot of the comedy is derived from. So aside from this one just being really well written and having a lot of good, funny dialogue, it's got these crazy crime caper kind of scenarios that you don't typically get in comedy movies like this, which is the main reason I love this one so much. And so another one starring Seth Rogen that a lot of people missed is Observe and Report. Now, I really enjoyed this one. He plays a mall cop, and a lot of people thought this was just like another Paul Blart Mall Cop type of thing, and it could not be further from Paul Blart Mall Cop. This is a kind of a rough movie. He's an odd character. There's full frontal male nudity in it. It's got a weird vibe to it, but it's done by the same creator as Eastbound and Down, and it has a very similar type of a vibe. He's a different character, but it's got sort of this weird edginess to it that I thought was really funny. It is a dark comedy, although it's not overly dark. I think even if you don't like dark comedies, there's enough to like here, and especially to pair this one with Pineapple Express would be great. This one might be a good pre-gamer for Pineapple Express, though, to watch this one before it. I'm not sure on that one. If you've got a preference between which one to watch first, you can let us know in the comments below. So a really great hidden gem that I have loved just for like the last month, I only just recently discovered it, is Animal World. Now this one is foreign language for the most part. There's a little bit of English in it, but it's pretty negligible. Most of the English comes from Michael Douglas, who has a really odd role in this crazy movie about rock, paper, scissors. And it's this crazy sort of fantasy futuristic sci-fi thing where all of these underprivileged people are put onto this giant yacht to play this life and death game of rock, paper, scissors. The really engaging element about this movie, aside from just some of the crazy dream-like sequences with these monsters and alien-looking things, is the game itself. They go into great detail as to how the game is actually played and how this main character is able to figure out the game and how to win this like rock, paper, scissors card game that literally his life is on the line for. And because it's foreign language, I actually had to pause it a few times just to read all the details in the subtitles, because it's really pretty intelligent the way they figure, all right, there's this many scissors left. That means we need to play this. It's entertaining all the way through in a bunch of different ways, which is why I love this one so much. On a similar note, Kung Fu Hustle is a really fun foreign language movie, and this one's, compared to the other, that one's pretty edgy and sharp and cool and new and fresh. This one's just weird. It's got Looney Tunes levels of violence with kind of a Kill Bill slant, and it's just bananas. I've talked about this one on the channel recently and said, you don't even have to read the subtitles. You should, because you can follow the story, but everything else that's happening on screen is so entertaining in Kung Fu Hustle, you can completely skip over the subtitles, and it's still just an amazing, amazing watch. I would maybe watch this one second because, like I said, you can kind of turn your brain off for it and just enjoy the spectacle. You're going to need to have a sharp mind for Animal World, though. So Blue Ruin has been one of my favorite thrillers in recent years. I really love it. I saw it when it first got dropped to Netflix. Shortly after its release, disappeared for a while. It's back now. It's actually directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who previously did Green Room and Hold the Dark, the Netflix original. This is one of his more accessible movies, in my opinion, and really what's great about it is there's very little dialogue, and the story is really well told without it. You follow a main character who has been sort of living basically like a hobo, and finds out that someone who harmed his family, I'm not going to go into great detail, has just been released from prison. First thing he decides to do is go kill this guy. This is like the first 15 minutes of this movie, and it really just takes off from there, and you get this really, really fantastic thriller in it. It's my favorite type of movie, and this is one of the best ones ever done, particularly for such a small budget. If that sounds like you, even if it doesn't, if you like my recommendations, I would have a hard time recommending a movie stronger than Blue Ruin. So speaking of Blue Ruin, Jeremy Saulnier, the director, his follow-up to Blue Ruin is another movie that's a great thriller that also features a color and a 4-letter R word in the title, oddly enough, and that is Green Room. Now this is a really, really great thriller. I like it almost as much as Blue Ruin, and it is about a punk band that plays for kind of this neo-Nazi club out in the woods, like a barn. I'm calling it kind of a club. It's like a barn type thing. Anyway, they get back to the green room after the show. They see something they should not have seen. They are then not allowed to leave the green room, hence the name. Patrick Stewart actually plays the boss of this gang, and he is a bad dude in this one. Really cool to see him in a role like that. He kills it. This is actually one of Anton Yelchin's last films right before he died. Really great actor. It's a shame we lost him when we did, but fantastic movie, great thriller. If you haven't seen it, this might be my favorite. I love some of these on the list a lot, but this might be my favorite double feature off of this entire list because they are ranked in no particular order. Now, another really great thriller that I can probably recommend just as strongly as Blue Ruin and Green Room is Hell or High Water. This was my favorite movie of, I want to say 2017 is when it came out, maybe 2016. But it's a really great bank heist movie starring Chris Pine and Ben Foster, two actors that I absolutely love, and Jeff Bridges is in it. He's the marshal that's hunting them down. Really great stuff all around, great performances, but it's really about a couple of brothers that really have no choice but to be sticking up banks in modern day. That's what's cool about it too. You don't get a lot of bank robbery movies that take place in modern day, and this is one of the best I've seen in a really long time. It's got great action in it, but just the relationship between the brothers is great. The story is really good. Like you are with these guys, even though they are robbing banks. It's really, really well put together. And you know, even though it's a good movie with good performances and good production value and all of that, it doesn't forget to be entertaining. It is a great piece of entertainment, which it gives me points for days. I watch a crappy movie if it's entertaining, and this one's a great movie that's also really entertaining and not stuffy at all. So if you can't get enough Texas crime thrillers after watching that one, No Country for Old Men is currently on the platform as well, and just an absolute classic to the point that it's one of my favorite movies. There are plenty that I like more than it, but it is up there, man. This is, I think, the Coen brothers in peak form, where you get the drama, you get the suspense, you get some of the humor, you get all the cool little elements that make the Coen brothers what they are. They all sort of exist together, and I think the right balance. It's not too silly and too funny. I mean, I love The Big Lebowski as much as anybody else, but this one is just so well balanced with all of their themes. It's really fantastic. I was a little tempted to pair this one with The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, but I really do think it goes really, really nicely with Hell or High Water, especially if you haven't seen that one. If you like this type of content, definitely click the subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out new videos just like this one. For the number 5 double feature, we got another one that has a heist element to it, and that's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. This was Guy Ritchie's first big-ish movie. Still a pretty small movie. Really the first time audiences got a good look at Jason Statham as well. Really great movie about this group of guys that have to, because one of them's in debt to the wrong people, have to raise a bunch of money in a very, very short amount of time, hence the heist element, and it's just great. The dialogue is fantastic. I mean, Guy Ritchie's almost like the British Quentin Tarantino. It's different, it has its own flavor, but it's still got that funky retro vibe, and it feels like a movie. You're in a kind of a slightly different world that's a little offbeat from our own, but it's a great place to spend 90 minutes. I have said it before, you may need to watch this one with subtitles just because not because the accents are thick, but the dialect in the language that they're actually using, the slang that they're using is called Cockney, and it is tough to understand if you've never seen a movie done in that language before. So much so, there's actually an entire sequence that is subtitled because it makes no sense otherwise. But if you have been used to sort of watching movies, at least with a thick British accent, you should be fine with this one without the subtitles. Another movie that's equally as hard to understand is Guy Ritchie's next movie, Snatch. I like this one a little bit better. As much as I love Lock, Stock, this one is better. It's tighter. It's a little more fun, even though Lock, Stock, the guys in that movie have a lot of fun. But Brad Pitt's in this one, and he's really only in it to get American butts in the seats. But he does a great job. Like, it doesn't feel like he's just forced into this movie. He really owns this role as this Irish gypsy, bare knuckle boxing champion guy that you will not be able to understand most of what he says, but it's so entertaining. Jason Statham really, really stands out here. This was still early in his career, but he's a much better actor than a lot of people give him credit for, and you can see that on display here. Just a fun, eclectic cast. Benicio del Toro is in this, for Christ's sake, and it's just so much fun. This is another just killer double feature on the list. These two almost like demand to be watched together. And for my last one involving a heist, Triple Frontier. It's one of the newest Netflix original movies. I've done a full review on it, talked about it a few times, so I'll be real brief. But I think it is a great heist movie. Some people had some disparaging comments in the comments section on some of the videos where I covered this, but as far as Netflix originals go, it's hard to get much better than this. You may have one that you prefer, but this is easily worth being released in the theaters. I thought it was a great watch. There are holes in it, but it works pretty damn well. Great performances by a whole host of actors. Most of them you'll recognize, including Ben Affleck. But it's about a group of guys who are mercenaries that go after can only be a drug cartel. They're not real specific about where they're located and who this person is, but go to steal a bunch of money, and things do not go very well, but it is really, really well put together. I've watched it twice. I could easily see myself watching it again before the year's out. So far in 2019, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. One of. So two of the stars of Triple Frontier, Oscar Isaac and Garrett Hedlund, star in a little movie called Mojave. Now this is a really great thriller about two guys that are just going head to head. These are two highly intelligent guys. Hedlund plays a, it's not really clear, but he's clearly like some sort of a celebrity, like a movie star, who kind of takes this sort of journey out into the desert, to the Mojave Desert, and runs into sort of this hobo character played by Isaac. And they basically get tangled up in this battle of wits where Isaac is trying to outsmart him and kill him. Just essentially for fun. It's sort of this psychological cat and mouse thing that really develops. It's really well written, really good, smart dialogue. It's a little bit too highbrow for like mass audiences, but great performances from two of the main stars from Triple Frontier, making it sort of one of the more interesting and oddball double features I've got for you on this list. Brooklyn's Finest is a really fantastic cop drama. I wish it were better. There's just something about it that doesn't quite make it an amazing movie, but it's got all the proper ingredients for one. It stars Richard Gere, Ethan Hawke, Wesley Snipes, Don Cheadle, really incredible cast, and it is just about a street-level crime, couple of old cops, couple of old criminals. There's an undercover element. There's somewhat of a heist element. Apologies for having so much of that in here. It might be because I have a video on the best heist movies coming up sometime soon, but this one's really fantastic. Directed by the same guy that did Training Day, and it was his first sort of return to the crime genre. I think really what happened here is it's just a little bit overreaching in terms of how many characters there are, how many storylines. That's what kind of prevents it from being really just pitch perfect, which is unfortunate because it's damn close. But if you love Training Day and you never caught this one, it is fantastic. Yeah, and another cop movie that really centers around that undercover element is The Departed, a superior movie to Brooklyn's Finest, but they do pair together oddly well. They're both fairly long, especially The Departed, so you might want to start watching this double feature before the sun goes down. But The Departed might be Martin Scorsese's best movie from this century. I put it pretty damn close to Goodfellas, and that's my favorite movie of all time, mainly because it's so perfectly composed. It's got an incredible pace to it where there's really no lag time in it. If you didn't enjoy it, I would give it another chance and really pay attention to the fact that it's constantly moving. It's in constant motion forward. The story is. And Scorsese's just a genius at that, and this movie is a fantastic vehicle for it. I think there's a chance. This movie shows me that there's a chance we've yet to see his absolute best work. I think he might have a better movie before he's dead and gone. We will see, but The Departed is still a damn good cop movie, especially when you weigh it against other ones that have come out this century. Abducted in Plain Sight is a documentary, a crime documentary about a young girl who was, for lack of a better phrase, abducted in plain sight. She was actually abducted by a family friend, and the crazy thing about this story is just how much manipulation went on. If you watch this one, you'll have a hard time not really hating her parents. I still don't understand how some of the stuff happened. There's crazy amounts of manipulation, including faking like a UFO abduction. And this is not silly subject matter. It's very, very serious, but it is just that crazy. If you really like true crime documentaries, this is a great one that's not overly brutal with murders and whatnot. It's pretty scary, but there's not like crime scene photographs and puddles of blood and stuff like something like The Staircase. This one's a little bit more watchable, I think, but still really gnarly stuff. One that does have a lot of crime scene photos and that involves a pretty brutal murder is Amanda Knox. Now, you might remember this case. It was all over the news. She was accused of killing her roommate. And this documentary does a pretty good job of recapping the case. Now, the reason I really like this one is I felt like it wasn't too biased. Even though she is in it pretty heavily, sort of giving a testimony to the camera, for the documentary, sort of telling her side of the story. The story itself, the documentary, really just goes through all the details of the case. It does show where there was some manipulation of the case, but it basically just recaps the case, and it's a good way to digest that case inside of 90 minutes. And I do like crime dramas, or crime documentaries rather. This is a good one because I have trouble with them sometimes because I feel like they're done a little too much for entertainment. This one I felt like I was just being informed and caught up on the Amanda Knox case because it was so long, it was really almost impossible to keep up with it in the news. And if that was not grim enough, my last double feature actually starts off with Schindler's List. Now that I think about it, this is a really horrible double feature. I'm not sure why you would want to watch another movie after watching Schindler's List, but it is, I think, one of Steven Spielberg's best films. It's certainly far from my favorite of his because it's not particularly entertaining, but it's so well composed, so well put together. There's so many scenes that are important to watch and that really play out in just an amazing way. It is an amazing, amazing accomplishment in terms of cinema, and I think it gets a little bit overlooked just because Steven Spielberg is so accomplished, but this is a great one. Again, I don't know that this is really worth watching with a secondary movie. However, there's another movie that pairs really, really well with it currently on Netflix. And that is The Pianist, another movie about surviving the Holocaust, starring Adrian Brody. This is the one he won an Academy Award for Best Actor for, and it's a really well put together movie, but boy, is it grim. On that note, I've got a really hilarious story about this movie. Once when my wife and I, right before we got married, I believe, we decided to watch this. I think maybe it was on Netflix at the time or something, but we decided to watch it. I had actually never seen it, so this is about 10 years ago. And it's a long movie, just like Schindler's List, which kind of just makes it a terrible double feature. What were you thinking? But she gets up, goes to the kitchen to make us a drink, realizes we have margarita mix, comes back into the living room with two gigantic fishbowl-sized bright green glasses with straws. They may or may not have had umbrellas in them. Margaritas in the middle of The Pianist, where Adrian Brody is literally eating rats in order to survive the Holocaust. So I was not in the mood for a margarita, really. So I wasn't really touching it once. And my wife, God bless her, I love her so much, at one point during the movie, probably during the rat eating scene, reaches over, taps my margarita glass and goes, "Drink your margarita." So that's still kind of a running joke here inside the family that we use all the time. But sorry you didn't get a full review of The Pianist. Definitely watch it. Watch it when you're in the right mood, though. Don't just like jump into a movie like that. It's really intense and deserves your full attention. But that is it for our double features. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Let us know what you will be watching in the comments below. But we will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking this one out, and you will see one of us on the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so a number of ways, like becoming a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people, or just liking, commenting, subscribing, regularly watching my content. Like I said, make sure you click that bell icon so you get notifications. But I put out a video like this one every single week, plus multiple other videos on movie reviews. You can also check out my podcast. It's an entirely separate channel. Tons more movie talk, movie reviews, recommendations. That's almost exclusively what's going on over there, but with celebrity guests at times, so it's a lot of fun. Be sure to check out that channel and subscribe there as well. But that, well, I guess I'm going to be by myself by the time I film this part. Yeah, the other me is gone.